Yeah, hi. Good evening, all of you. Hope you are able to hear me, right? Okay, great. Very good evening. Okay. Um, Hi, Rishi. Can you hear me? Yeah, Rishi. Okay, fine. So, just a minute. So today I'm going to start with advanced Java concepts, so which are also called as Java E, Java Enterprise Edition. So, Java Enterprise Edition. Yes. Why it is used? Java Enterprise Edition basically it provides the support for developing enterprise applications. Okay, it helps us to develop enterprise applications. That is what we do with enterprise edition. So when I say enterprise applications, yes, what does that mean? What do people think? What are enterprise applications? Enterprise application means yes, any business applications. Okay, yeah, you see, you'll find that enterprise applications basically they are specially designed and developed, to help the business people in their day-to-day business activities, I can say. Okay, so enterprise applications are designed and developed to, okay, they are specially designed and developed to cater the needs of an enterprise, or I can say a business. So they will have various requirements. Any business, this enterprise applications will help them. And enterprise Java will help you people to develop such applications which helps the business people in their day-to-day business activities, I can say. So what are the things we have here in enterprise edition? First, let me give you an outline. So how we are going to start, how it works. So first I'll be starting with JDBC API, which is basically used to interact with the database server. So, you know what, in real life, in your projects, you might not use this JDBC API. Okay. So that's the reason why I'm not going to extensively discuss about this JDBC API, but to good extent, I will talk about JDBC API. Why? Because JDBC API is the building blocks for a Hibernate framework. Okay, so Hibernate framework is built on top of JDBC API. So to help you people better understand Hibernate framework, I'll teach you people JDBC API. So the next thing what we are going to do here is learn Hibernate framework. So what is Hibernate framework here? Yes, Hibernate, I can say that it is a persistence framework, or we say it is actually an ORM framework. Yes, persistence or ORM framework here. Yes. So what do we mean by a persistence framework or an ORM framework here? Yes. What do you people think? Can someone answer this question? Persistence or ORM framework. Hello. Are you people able to hear me? Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. One of the attendees is not able to hear. So what is persistence framework? Yes. What do you people think? No idea. You know, persistence means basically here it deals with permanent storage. When I say persistence, the term persistence, you will find that here it is used to refer to permanent storage. Permanent storage of what? The data. Here, mainly, this is a persistence framework which helps us to interact with the database server and perform this DB operations here. Okay, store that object state. So you see, in Java, always we used to represent the data using objects, right? Where is the data in Java in the objects so far? Now, the data which is in the object, is it stored temporarily or permanently in the objects? What do people think?
Temporarily.
Yes, it is stored temporarily. Yes. You see, objects they live on the heap. You'll find that objects basically they live on the heap. So heap memory is volatile memory. So once we stop the application, once the application stops or restarts, whatever the objects which you have got on the heap will be destroyed because the memory heap memory which is allocated for this JVM will be deallocated. You will freshly allocated again. So whatever the data you have on the heap will be lost. So that is where Java applications need a permanent storage to store this data. You know, here for this purpose we'll be using database servers. Okay, now you have both types of servers, NoSQL and SQL database servers. Okay, I'll show you MongoDB as well. Okay, yes. So we'll see relational database servers as of now. Okay, Hibernate mainly is used to work with relational database servers. So Hibernate framework, it helps you people to interact with the database server and store that object state to the database server. Not only storing the object state, but also you know retrieving it based on the requirements. Okay, yes. When I say object state, that means I'm referring to the data which is stored in the object. Okay, I'm referring to the data. Object state means the data which is in the object. Yes. But already, if you people are familiar, JDBC API is used for that purpose. Okay. Okay. Here, just a second. Already we have JDBC API. Then why do we need Hibernate framework? Because Hibernate framework will further simplify the process of interacting with the database server. Okay, initially when Java was introduced, we had only JDBC API. Okay, there was only JDBC API. But later on, people found that there are issues with JDBC API. I mean, limitations. There are certain limitations for JDBC API. So that limitations, you see, they've been addressed by this Hibernate framework, which is based on ORM concept. ORM. You'll find that Hibernate is actually based on object relational concept. Okay. Yes. So you will learn what is this ORM and all. Okay. Yes, definitely you'll come to know about it. So mainly Hibernate is used to deal with persistence. Okay. Yes. For large applications, you'll find that here this frameworks like Hibernate they're very helpful. Next, we have servlets and JSP APIs, which are basically used for developing web applications. Okay, these APIs are used to develop web applications. But nowadays, generally, we don't use servlets and JSPs directly to develop any web applications. Okay, but you will find that here there are frameworks which are built on top of this servlets and JSPs. Mainly, you'll find that we'll be using servlets for server-side programming to process the request on the server side, I can say. You know, uh, yes, as part of the requirements, business requirements, your enterprise needs or your business needs clients, who run the business, they need web applications. Okay, so to make their applications online, provide them to the customers so that they can access via web. So you will find that definitely they'll need web applications as well. So to develop that web application, so servlets and JSPs are available. But as I told you people, this is very, um, outdated approach nowadays. So using JSPs especially, you'll find that most of them they've stopped using it. So instead, you have far more advanced frameworks, like Angular, jQuery, uh, such things are used on the client side rather than JSPs. You see, JSPs were used to create web pages to make the web page dynamic. We used to use them. I'll show you. So what I've decided is that here I'm not going to waste much time on this. I'll brief you people about the servlets and JSPs, and I will spend rather more time on latest technologies which you got. I'll tell you what are the latest technologies which are introduced in Java in the enterprise application development itself. I can say not just specific to Java. Okay, yes. So Java also definitely provides the support for that latest approach which is used for developing enterprise applications and all. We'll see that. Okay. So, but for if you want the uh, detailed discussion of the servlets and JSPs, still, if you insist me, what I'm going to do is I'll be sharing the records, okay, of the previous sessions where I've discussed about servlets and JSPs in depth. Definitely, I'll be providing the access to them. Okay. Yes. So next, what we're going to do is here, we'll be learning web services. Okay, web services. When we talk about web services, you have both SOAP-based web services. For developing SOAP-based web services, in Java, we have APIs like JAX-WS API, and we have another framework, a third-party framework called as Access2. So you learn how to develop web services here. Okay, so which are also one of the common requirements for enterprise applications. And here we'll also work with RESTful services. RESTful. For developing RESTful services, we'll be using JAX RS API and Jeffc framework. And later on, you'll find that even using Spring framework, you can develop this RESTful services. You have something called as REST controllers, which will greatly simplify the development of RESTful services, I can say. Okay. So what are these web services? Any idea? What is a web service?
A web service is basically an interface where you don't have to be dependent on any programming language to communicate with the server. So it's like client server technology where it's language agnostic. So basically yeah,
Yeah, got it.
over internet with
Yeah,
HTTP protocol.
yeah. Is it Rishank or Rishi? Both, is it same?
Yeah, I am Rushan. Yeah.
Okay, Rishank. I don't see your name here. I was just confused. I hear your voice. I did recognize your voice, but did you log in here? And I don't see your name in the attendee list.
Remind.
Okay. Is it? I see another attendee with the name Rishi. Is it you?
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, fine. Good. Thank you. I was just confused with the name Rishi and Prashant. Okay. So while you speak, even it is not showing a name. I guess that's some issue. Fine, no problem. So yes, that is right. In simple terms, as of now, for time being, for everyone not familiar with web services, I can say that a web service is a piece of, you know, business logic or functionality which is accessible over the web or internet, I can say, through standards based internet protocols like HTTP. Yes. And you'll find that a web service is platform independent and language independent. Yes. So, so I guess this is the most the simplest definition for web services here. A web service is a piece of business logic or functionality. You can think of it as a component. Generally, you've heard about term component a lot. Component means something which is reusable, right? Web service is also like a reusable component, but there is they are better than components. I can say in what ways they are accessible over the web. So piece of business logic means here I'm referring to the code, which implements some business rules. When I say business logic, that means the code which implements some business rules. That is business logic. So here, this business logic of functionality is accessible over the web through standard-based internet protocols like HTTP. Yes, and you will find that a web service is platform independent and language independent. Yes, when I say language independent, first let's start with this. That means you see, if you develop a web service in Java, it is not just confined to Java applications. Even non-Java applications can access this web service and they can use the functionality which is defined here in this web service. Okay, which is provided by this web service, I can say. Okay, so it is interoperable. I can say it is interoperable. Interoperable means any or heterogeneous applications can access them. Even non-Java applications can access them. There is no issue. If you develop a web service in .NET, you can access it from any other application, okay, like Java application, PHP, Node.js applications, or Python applications can access them. Yes, they are very much language independent. Yes. So next, it is platform independent. Yes, so you can access them from any platform. Okay, so they are not just specific to any platform. So this makes web services, very flexible, and you will find that here we can we share that functionality or business logic across the platforms and applications here. So more reusable code, I can say, yes, which is not specific or confined to a particular application, okay, which can be accessed by many different applications. Yes. So basically, if you develop a component, it will be confined to only a particular application, or the other applications which are specific to that particular language. But services, they are not specific to any language or any platform. That is the advantage of using the web services here. Yes, fine. I hope you people got it. So you will find that again, web services are two different types. Okay, we'll dig into more details of it later on. So one will be based on SOAP protocol, the other one will be based on HTTP. But of course, at the end, for both the services, you need definitely um, HTTP protocol. Yes, fine. So any questions here? Okay. Next, followed by web services, I'll be talking about Spring framework. How about Spring? What do people know about Spring framework? Yes. Okay, let me explain it. Now, when I say Spring, I can say that Spring, it is one of the most predominant frameworks which you'll find here in Java. Spring framework is based on, sorry, Spring framework is used for developing enterprise applications, I can say. Yes. So mainly Spring framework is developed it is used for developing enterprise applications. Spring framework is widely known and it is popular for providing very good support for developing enterprise applications. So you will learn the Spring framework, okay, here in Java Enterprise Edition. You'll find that basically Spring framework, Hibernate framework, the Access to framework, Jersey framework, I've mentioned about at least 4 frameworks now. I listed down 4 frameworks. When I say APIs, they're definitely part of your Java Enterprise Edition, okay, officially part of Java, I can say. But most of the frameworks here, which I'm mentioning, which I did mention here, they're not part of Java. I mean, they're not provided by Java people. Third-party people have provided these frameworks. Okay, you'll find that third-party people, basically, they have provided these frameworks. So there are a lot of open source communities associated to Java, okay, who contribute a lot to Java community and Java development. So these people, basically, they have provided this framework. Okay, Hibernate, Access to, Jersey, and Spring frameworks. Yes, they are open source. They are, provided by third-party people. Open source communities have provided those frameworks. Yes. So, when I say Spring framework, it is not only used for developing enterprise applications, it helps you people to develop web applications also. Okay, you'll find that here in Spring we have Spring MVC module, which helps us to develop web applications. So we have various other modules also, definitely, which we will be discussing apart from the Spring MVC. Like we have Spring AOP. In Spring we have various modules. You'll come across it. But just I wanted to make you people understand that Spring framework is basically used for developing enterprise as well as web applications, not just confined to enterprise applications. Okay. Yeah. So this is about Spring framework. You know what? Again, you'll find that you have something called a Spring Boot, which is also, you can think of it as Spring framework itself. But Spring Boot, it further simplifies the process of developing Spring applications. Okay, it will further simplify the process of developing the applications using Spring Framework. In other words, I can say. So it greatly simplifies the process of developing applications using Spring. So you'll learn it. Okay, you'll see what is the Spring Boot. Yes, and then we'll be talking about microservices. So what are microservices? Yes. You know, this is Spring Boot and microservices. So these are the latest technologies, especially microservices is a more latest one. Yeah, they are. Yeah, you will find that actually we develop microservices using RESTful services itself again. Okay, so microservices is an architecture which is recommended and which is used for developing enterprise applications nowadays. Okay, so now when we talk about enterprise application development, you know, you'll find that here there are two approaches which are followed. Earlier, only people used to follow this approach called as monolithic architecture. Okay, monolithic, sorry, monolithic architecture. Yes, this was a conventional approach of developing enterprise applications. Okay, so you will find that in monolithic architecture, this enterprise application is developed as a okay, is developed, and basically this enterprise application is bundled as a deployable file, and simply it is hosted on the application server. Okay, the entire application will be running on a single application server. The whole application will be running on the single application server, I can say. Okay, that is what happens. So following the monolithic approach, there are several drawbacks which I will be talking about, which I will be discussing when we discuss about microservices. Always an application is developed and bundled as a deployable or executable file, I can say, and then it is hosted on a server. Generally, your enterprise applications will run on application servers. So far, you see the Java applications which have developed, core Java applications, we used to host them on JVM. So JVM was enough. But for web application and enterprise applications, we have special requirements. You will need a web server for web applications, and for enterprise applications, you need an application server. So now the things have changed a lot. Okay, so people basically they've moved away from conventional or traditional way of developing applications, and basically a new approach is followed here, especially with regard to running these applications. You have cloud platforms. So the microservices architecture, it supports this cloud platform actually. What is this cloud platform all about? You might have heard about it. Cloud a lot. Cloud platform a lot. Is anyone familiar with it? Yes. Okay. Just heard about it. Didn't you bother to read? What is it? You might have done that at least to some extent. So what do you understood about cloud platform? Okay. First of all, before I talk about this cloud platform, so let me just tell you people about this microservices architecture. So microservices is an architecture basically which is followed for developing enterprise applications again. Okay. Here, as I told you people, in case of monolithic applications, yes, architecture, the entire application is hosted onto a single server. That's it. Whereas in microservices, we follow a different approach. We follow a different approach here. So what is the approach which you follow here? You know, in this case, the application is not developed. Is application is sorry is the application is developed as or it is an aggregate of various independent services. Okay, you'll find that here application enterprise application is composed of or it is an aggregate of several independent services, I can say. Yes, where each service will be running with its own process, with its own processor, okay, and will have its own database, everything. It is very much independent. Each service will be very much independent. So you can develop an enterprise application by aggregating several such independent services together. You see, each service might be hosted on a different machine, different servers. There is no problem. Uh, this is what is related to your yeah, Docker, cloud platform, everything. Yes. Okay. So it is a the entire application, enterprise application, is basically an aggregate of various independent services. Those services are actually called as microservices. Okay, microservices here. Yes. So basically, this is one step forward with regard to your cloud platform. You'll see that. So we'll be talking about it. So yes, I'll be talking about Dockers here. Yes, mainly Dockers and all are used here in case of microservices. We'll see that. So next thing, after now, how will you learn microservices? How will you develop microservices? Okay. So basically, you will learn how to develop microservices using Spring Boot. Okay. You learn developing microservices using Spring Boot. Okay, yeah. Next thing you learn Dockers. So what are Dockers? What about Dockers? What do you people can what do you people know about Dockers? Yes, it has containers on which we have our applications. Okay, Dockers is the buzzword which you'll hear a lot. So I can say that Dockers is something more related to deployments and so the environment rather than coding here. You'll find that Docker basically it provides platform, okay, for the developers to develop the applications, okay, which you can ship them, which you can deploy them on any machine, without having any dependencies on that machine. You see, generally, so far traditional conventional applications, what happens is if you want to run or deploy your application, you'll have basic software requirements, right? Like you need a JVM, you need an application server. Mainly, you need an application server if it is a enterprise application and all, right? So, or a web server. But now you'll find that Docker will be shipped. You'll have a Docker images, okay, which contains almost everything which is required. Apart from the application, also the resources required for the application will be shipped. So you can simply deploy this application using the Docker images and all, okay, which contains almost everything. Yes. So that is what the difference you'll see here with the Dockers. So this is too early for us to talk about the Dockers and all. But what you can understand is, as of now, you see, you can develop an application and you can build an application, you know, which you can just take it with along with the resources required to run this application. Okay. Yes. So that is what you can do with Dockers. Maybe this looks like very simple, but the kind of approach which was followed earlier for building applications and deployments, so it makes a lot of difference. Okay, that is what I will learn. So these are the various things which we'll be discussing here in enterprise applications, where you will learn, you know, these are all the requirements, common requirements which you'll see for the enterprise applications, and you have the support here in Java. Okay, yes. So now having just mentioned about the topics which we'll be covering, now let's do one thing. Straight away we'll jump into the discussion. We'll start with JDBC first. Okay, yes. So anyone got any questions in this regard, please let me know. No? Okay, good. So let's start with the first topic here, that is JDBC API. Sorry. Yeah, you see, Saujanya has a question. Are you going to connect to any database now? Yeah, JDBC is all about interacting with the database server. Java applications. We'll see how a Java application will interact with the database server. That is what we'll be doing here. Yeah. So you have any issues with regard to the JDBC? Okay, fine. So what is this JDBC? JDBC, it stands for Java Database Connectivity API. Just now, as I've discussed, JDBC, you'll find that, sorry, it helps you people to interact with the database server. So far, the Java applications which we saw, always we used to store the data in the Java objects. We used to store the data in the Java objects, which were on the heap. And as I told you people, heap is just a temporary memory location. It's volatile. The data on the heap is not stored permanently. All your objects they live in the heap. But you see, for any business, data is most important thing. Data is most important thing here. So they have to retain this data. The data has to be retained permanently. Yes. In some cases, you'll find that the data which is created by an application, it outlives that application. It lives for a long time. In storing the data in a permanent storage, that is the most important thing. So this is where Java applications, they take the help of database service. They will take the help of database service here. This is where your JDBC API comes into the picture. So the Java applications, with the help of JDBC API, they'll be able to interact with the database server, store the data in the database server, and fetch the data from the database server. Update it, delete it. You can perform all the DB operations with the help of this JDBC API. So that is how JDBC API is used. Okay, yes. So now for this training purpose, I'm going to use MySQL database server. For this training purpose, I'm using MySQL database server. So what about you people? What database servers you people are using? May I know? PGAdmin. Okay. DB2. Okay. MySQL. Okay. Okay. And what about others? Oracle. You know what? You're free to use any database server. There is no such restriction as such here. Okay. But make sure that you're using relational database servers. You have to use a relational database server. Okay. So the JDBC API, I can say that it is a standard API which helps you people to connect to any database server. It is a standard API which helps you people to connect to any database server, I can say. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It is not specific to any database server. Now, before I discuss anything about this JDBC API, First of all, straight away, I would like to show you people how we can use this JDBC API to connect to a particular database server. Okay, let's check this. I have MySQL database server, as I told you people. Let me just open the server. Yeah, you see, in this database server, I have a table called as product. Generally, you know, in database servers, always we store the data in the tables. Okay, a table is actually made up of several columns. And each column it holds a value. You see, a particular type of value, you can say. Now, in this product table, we have the product records. So, what details of product are stored here? You'll find that we have a product ID, description, name, price. So, you can consider these products as the items which you see in the online shop or any company which sells the products or supplies the products. Let's say it depends. You find that in database tables, each row, you see, each row it represents one product record here. Okay, a row. What about the Java application? Now you see that row it represents a product entity. We say generally in database the term entity is used. Entity means you can just think of it as a kind of object, a real world object, a real world thing. In Java, entity is related to an object, I can say. So that entity details are stored here as a row in the product table. I have a question now for you people. If you were to store the same data in a Java application, the same product details in a Java application, what you will do?
We'll make a class called product.
That's right. So we'll make a class called as product, and you see to store this column values, each column values are like ID, name, price, description. We'll add the fields to that class. So we'll create a product class object, and in that object you're going to store this data. That is how it works here in Java. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Yeah, sorry. Yes. So now let's do one thing. Here, let's create a Java application. This Java application will add the product details to the database server. Okay, we'll add the product details to the database server. So here I'll create a JDBC project. I mean a Java project here in JDBC proj. I'm creating a very simple Java project, and then the JDBC API, it requires drivers, something called as drivers. I'll be talking about this drivers later on. As of now, just please excuse me. Okay. So later on, you'll come to know about this drivers. This is the only thing which I'm just leaving it now. Um, JDBC needs JDBC drivers. JDBC API needs JDBC drivers. I'm adding them here. There is a story behind this drivers which you need to know. I'll talk about it. Yeah. Just adding this jar file, additional jar here. Fine. You're all set. Now, first of all, you see, as I told you, uh, we want to add this product record, and on the database side, this record how they are represented as rows. Sorry, the data product details, they are represented as rows here. You see, you'll find that here when it comes to the data representations, it depends. In database, always the data here, it is represented in the form of records, DB records. We say they are represented as records in the database, right? So when it comes to Java applications, the data is represented as objects. Always the way the data is represented here in Java is as objects here. Data is represented as objects. How about other languages? It depends. Okay, from application to application. I mean, from language, different languages they represent data in a different way. There are some more data representations also. Soon you'll come to know about it. It is the data is also represented using XML, JSON format is there, XML, JSON, and what else? In C, structures are there. Yes, different languages they represent the data in a different way. Yes, but here in the database now, try to understand that always the data is represented in the form of records. So let's try to represent this records here in Java. So that product details, if you were to represent them here in Java, then first of all, you have to define a product class. Okay, this way. Uh, I'll add a package with the name VO. Into this package, I'll add this class product. Then here, I'll make this class a Java bean. I'll add the fields to store the values. Let me add a parameterized constructor, convenience sake. Then I'll add getters and setters here. So this is the same thing which we used to do always, create a Java bean. Now we have this Java main class with getters and setters. Okay, so you see in this class we got this properties like ID, name, price, and description. So that each column value can be stored here. Each column value can be stored here. You see, the product underscore ID column value will store it in that ID property. Product description column value will store it in the description property. Product name in the name property. Price in the price property. What about supplier ID? Don't worry about it as of now. Okay, just leave it. Please ignore the supplier for now. Okay. Next, now let's define a class where you will write the code to connect to the database server with the help of JDBC API and perform this DB operation, that is inserting a record into the product table. That is what I'm going to show you people. Yes, definitely I'll be talking about this API and all. First I want you to understand how it works here, how do we use this JDBC API, so that we can have a better discussion on this. So now I'll define a class called as test. In the default package I'll add it. We'll add a main method to it. In this class, let me add a method with the name add product. So the responsibility of this method is to add the product record. The product record in the sense, here on the Java side we have the data in the objects, right? Yes. So we'll have some data in the Java object, and we'll try to store it into the table, database table as a record. So this add product method will take the product object and will save that object state to the table. It will save that object state to the table. So I'll make this reference type as product type here. Product. Okay. So it takes the product object reference and reads the data from the product object, and it will add it to the database server. See, let's write the code here. First thing, you have a set of steps which you need to follow. What are those steps? Let's see. So first of all, you have to load the drivers, but this step has become optional, but still I'll show you. Loading the JDBC drivers. This is optional nowadays, it's not mandatory. Class.forName org.gzt.1.mysql.driver. This JDBC drivers, they play a key role in they help us to connect to the database server, I can say. The JDBC drivers itself, they help us to connect to the database server. You know, the first thing is loading the drivers. And once you're done loading the drivers, the next thing is you need to establish the connection with the database server. So for name method, we people have used it earlier also. Why did we use for name method? I mean, people who have attended core Java classes, they should be able to answer this question. Why did we use for name method? Okay, it returns a class object. And what else it does? Before returning the class object, it does one more thing. What is it? That's right. Basically, it loads a class into the memory. For name method is actually, it instructs the class loader to load a class into the memory here. Yes. So if you want to load a class explicitly into the memory, it is used for that purpose here. Yes. Okay. Especially people who have attended core Java classes. Yes. We have gone through it in the object class discussion, get class method. Okay, but don't worry if you don't know. What we are doing here, we are loading this class into the memory. Which class? This class explicitly. Okay, next. This is step one. First step is loading the drivers, but this has become optional nowadays. Optional step, I can say. So you, this drivers are loaded automatically with introduction of JDBC4. That's been around for a long time. JDBC4. Yes. Next thing is establish the connection. Establish the connection with DB server. So for this step, you need to have the details about your database server. You should know your database server. Okay. Make sure that you have the details about your database server. So now, in order to establish the connection with the database server, now we are going to use a predefined class from the JDBC API. We'll use one of the predefined classes from the JDBC API. What is that class? Driver manager. Driver manager. In the driver manager, we got a method called as get connection. So, this Java API, you'll find that it is actually part of your SQL package. Okay, on top you can check this. Driver manager class is from java.sql package. So your SQL package itself is your JDBC API, I can say. Okay, yes. So driver manager, it's a predefined class. So simply call this get connection method and you pass the details about the database server to this get connection method and it will try to establish a connection. Now you want to connect to which database server? It's the MySQL database server. So I'll provide the details this way. JDBC colon MySQL. Okay, JDBC colon MySQL. Colon. Where is the database server? /localhost. That means we have to provide the details about the database server. This MySQL database server, where it is hosted on the local host on the same machine, where it is hosted on the same machine, local machine, right? Yeah. So JDBC colon MySQL, it indicates that this database server is MySQL database server. We want JDBC API to connect to MySQL database server. Followed by that, local host indicates that the database server is on the same machine. What if it is on a different machine? What is it if it is hosted on some other machine or some other server? You will provide the IP address of that machine or host name of that machine. Yes, IP address or host name of that machine. That is what you need to do. Next, you know, you'll find that the database server will be listening on a port. So for MySQL database server, the default port is 3306. Okay, the default port is 3306. When we install MySQL server, by default, the server will be running on this port. Similarly, for other database servers also have the appropriate ports. You have to refer to the documentation to understand what is the port number. Database server documentation to get the details about the port number that the database server uses by default. Okay. Yes. Next, in the database, we'll have something called as schema. We got something called as schema. Schema means it is nothing but it is a collection of DB schema means basically is a collection of tables, joins, functions, and procedures, I can say. Okay, tables, joins, functions, and procedures, I can say. Yes. Okay, yes, that is what you'll see here. So the way we group similar classes and interfaces in Java, similarly in the database, schema is used to group tables, similar tables. You see, you have in this schema called as test. I have a schema called as test here. In this schema, I have a lot of tables, you see, and we have procedures, views, functions, and all. So here I have to specify the schema name test. That's it. So this is your connection URL. It is called as a connection string or a connection URL. Basically, which refers to the database server. Next, the second parameter is the username, root, and the password, root. That's it. In my case, the username and password are root. Every database server, you see, of course, you have to provide credentials. So database servers are secured. So you need to provide this username, password. So what username you have configured appropriately, you can provide that username and password. Yes. So now the get connection method will take all these details and it will establish the connection with the database server. So once it is able to successfully establish the connection, what it does, it actually returns that connection object reference here. It returns the connection object reference. Yes. Okay. Yes, we are done establishing the connection. So why we are establishing the connection with the database server? To add a record, to insert a record. Okay. Yes. So, but before we move any further, I'm sorry. Today I'm running out of time. I'll discuss about adding the record in the next session. Okay. So first we saw how to establish the connection, how to load the drivers. But I have a question for you people. Just you can type in yes or no. I want to extend the class time by half hour. I mean, as of now, we are conducting 1.5 hour session, but I would like to make it 2 hours. So, how many how many of you people can attend the class at 6 a.m. Indian time? 6 a.m. Indian time. As of now, I'm starting at 6:30. I want to make it 6 a.m. so that I can add an extra half hour. For Java, 1.5 hour was fine, but for enterprise application, enterprise Java, I would like to extend the class time for 1.5 hour. So 6 a.m. Indian time. Is it okay? Can I have yes or no? Or else I'll plan an alternate schedule. 8:30 will be difficult because I have another batch at 8 o'clock. So there are few people in the Eastern time. So for them it is already 9:30. So I make it 8:30. It will be 10 p.m. Eastern time for them. It will be little late. So I just wanted to start it off early. So what about others? Okay, so Shank is okay. Niharika, Saujanya, okay. Saujanya. Okay, great then. So we can start it half hour early from tomorrow itself. Not just a minute. From day after tomorrow, I'll start at that time. So tomorrow we'll meet at 6:30 itself. From day after tomorrow, we'll start at 6. Okay, yes, so that we can spend 2 hours every day. So that's all for today. So in the next session, I'll continue this discussion. So because I've just introduced you with the enterprise edition topics, what we'll be covering, what we'll do. So otherwise, we have completed this part of code, writing the code to add the records. Yeah. So let's meet tomorrow at 6:30 itself. But day after tomorrow, we'll start at 6. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye bye.